Members, I have the gavel this evening. It's courtesy of Faith. This was presented to Royal Berkshire Fire Authority by Ian Cox in 2013 as Chief Fire Officer. So I can guarantee I won't need to use it now I've got it, which is great. I can also guarantee that the next meeting of the Fire Authority will be longer than this evening, because it will be the budget meeting. Whereas this evening is quite a light agenda, and there's a sweepstake going around with me by 7:35, but that will be in your hands, as always. So welcome, and let's get started. If I may ask for apologies for absence, please.
Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Robert Stedman and Helen Taylor, and we've got Councillor McEvoy attending virtually, and Councillor Sharp will be attending a bit late, she's stuck in traffic.
Physically?
Physically, yeah.
Thank you very much. And Faith, I may not stop Councillor McEvoy if he's trying to speak. Just let me know, will you? If he's quiet before I do. Thank you very much. And use your microphone.
Chair.
Okay.
Faith,
Mackenzie Brown.
through you, have you got Pauline Elliott-Simons now? Apologies there for Pauline.
So back to me. Now, declarations of interest. I'm going to read out some words here because we have tonight the members' allowances. So in terms of declaration of interest, under the authority's updated code of conduct, which was adopted in April 22, members' allowances are categorised as non-registrable interests. And the monitoring officer has confirmed that he has granted dispensations to all members to allow all members to speak and to vote on agenda item 12. Okay, the independent review of the scheme of allowances. So for the avoidance of doubt, we can speak, we can vote, although it's pecuniary, you're giving us dispensation. Thank you very much. No other declarations of interest, members, at all? Thank you very much. And the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of June, pages 7 to 18. Do I have any comments? I notice there are no actions therein, so we're literally just taking the minutes as read. Who would like to propose? Billy Drummond, Councillor Billy Drummond. Councillor, there was a flurry, but I'll take Councillor Shepherd Dupay. Thank you very much indeed. And so agreed. So then on page, right. I go to receipt of announcements. So this is petitions and questions from the public understanding orders 19 and 25. Are there any? No petitions and questions. Receipt of announcements. I'll go first, Chief, okay? That's all right with you. Members, we do have, very sadly, two dedicated public servants who have passed in recent months. Nick Oxborough, one of our fire safety inspecting officers, he passed away following a period of illness. Nick had dedicated his career to Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service, serving both on fire stations across the county and as a fire safety inspecting officer for more than 40 years. I did attend his funeral and I knew Nick to be a very, very good man indeed, and a great member, officer of this authority. Sadly, we also lost Duncan Morgan Russell, another fire safety inspecting officer, late last month. Duncan made a profound contribution to Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service in a career of more than 45 years, working in various operational roles and as a fire safety inspecting officer. Two officers, staff members who've been with us such a long time and made such an impact. The service will remember them fondly and will have been very upset at their passing. So on behalf of the Fire Authority, I'd like to offer my deepest condolences to the families and friends of Nick and Duncan following their tragic losses, and cards were sent on behalf of the Fire Authority and myself to their families. I'd be grateful now, members, if you would, with me, stand and we observe a minute's silence to remember the vote. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. I think at the last management committee, and I'll do it again now, that we welcome 2 new members to the senior leadership team. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Paul Brooks and Ben Cairns, who will shortly or have joined. Ben's there. Good evening, sir. Saw you last time at the management committee, and Paul Brooks was here as well, wasn't he? So 20th of November, Paul starts, but he did come to the other event. So, starting with Paul, he'll join us as our new head of assets, a role which combines the 2 previous heads of department roles of estates, fleet and equipment, and head of capital estates projects into one larger area of responsibility. Paul brings with him an exceptional wealth of experience, including senior military roles with the Royal Engineers, and more recently working as Assistant Director of Assets for the Imperial War Museum. Yes, some cachet, that one. Meanwhile, Ben hasn't come to the Imperial War Museum, but something equally, I'm sure, is interesting. So you've taken up the role of Area Manager for Response and Resilience. We welcome you, sir. And you're from North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, having been with them for 26 years. So we look forward to 26 years from you, Ben. Just settle down and we'll see you in 26 years' time or whatever. We'll see you. Thank you very much. You've held a range of roles within service delivery and most recently completed an assignment as Head of Service Improvement, developing the new Community Risk Management Plan, CRMP, in North Yorkshire. I won't put you on the spot and say what do you think about CRMP yet, but you know, when I next see you I might. But thank you. I look forward to working with both you and Paul as you begin your roles. Members, on the 4th of October we held a workshop in here to discuss the draft Members' Charter, which is on the agenda tonight, and the priorities for the Fire Authority for the coming year. I thought it was a very productive meeting. I know that for officers you were probably giving a lot of information, but I hope you got enough back to feel that you were supported in the way we're going. We are going to have another one on the 9th of January, and for members who want to be involved in the strategic direction, but also to learn a lot more about the service, these are very, very useful events. And we run them regularly. I don't know what we're going to do, twice a year? Yeah, thank you. And out of members also will be aware that we're putting a task and finish group together for CRMP. I think it's work stream 3, and for the automatic fire alarm review, which is an ongoing review process. Jim, you'll help us on that in the coming months. Now then, what's an AI Summit? Week commencing 30th of October, our operational officers and Thames Valley Fire Control Service supported the planning of the Global AI Summit in Bletchley. So that was, yeah, we all heard about that. And Elon Musk came and told us nobody would have to work from next year, was it? And so we all look forward to that, members, don't we? Because we might finally be able to retire, us older people.
Borders to end as well.
Well, no doubt, no doubt. But I suppose Bletchley was the perfect place for it. Who was up there from, anybody in the room? No?
No.
Okay.
So, planning officers,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
hazmat and those.
yes, yeah, good. So, we note that. I attended personally the judicial service at the Minster Church St Mary the Virgin, Reading. My second year running. I went as the Mayor of Thatcham last year and the Chair of the Fire Authority this year. It's a lovely event. So it was held on behalf of the High Sheriff, Simon Muir, and I attended the church service. The theme was Young People and the Law. Uplifting music was provided by young people from Ludgrove School and the Reading Community Gospel Choir. You know, churches and gospel go together, don't they? And it was very uplifting indeed. And we thank Simon Muir for the invitation. Andrew Try was appointed as the new Lord Lieutenant on the 23rd of October. I'd like to congratulate him on his appointment and thank his predecessor, Mr. James Puxley, for his tenure from 2015 to October 2023. And I actually went to the Lord Lieutenant James Puxley's retirement event at Welford Park. And if anybody hasn't been to the light show there, I thoroughly recommend it because it was the evening before it opened. And so we had a dress rehearsal of the light show. So that was another event. And then the Chief and myself attended the HMI CFRS Chiefs and Chairs meeting on the 1st of November at the Oval. And we looked down across the pitch and it reminded us how badly England had been doing in the World Cup. So we glossed over that. The meeting was attended by chiefs and chairs across England, and we received presentations from HMI Roy Wilshire, OBE QFSM, and NFCC representatives, and that was a very useful day, I thought, giving us a bit of an understanding of how the inspector's thinking is, and the sort of thing we can look forward to, if that's the right words, why not, in round about, Nikki, Chief, October, yeah, of next year, our own inspection. On Remembrance Day, I'm proud to announce that our Chief Fire Officer, Wayne, will be taking on the role of the National Service Remembrance Civil Service Contingent Commander from 2024. This weekend, the Union flag will be flown at full mast across our sites as the service honours those who made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedom on Remembrance Day and Remembrance Sunday. As a service, we'll also be offering those who served or are still serving an opportunity to come together at Newbury Fire Station at our latest Armed Forces Veterans Hub event tomorrow, 9th of November, between 10:30 and 1:30. I'm going to try and get along just to say hello there. I did go to one in Crowthorne about a year ago. It's very good indeed. So I'd like to join the service and the nation in paying tribute to all those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for the country. Refurbishment of Slough Fire Station. Recently approved by Management Committee, Logic Contract Service Limited has been selected as the contractor to undertake refurbishment works. It is anticipated these will start on Monday the 20th of November and run through to next summer. So imminently, and some comms went out to that effect. The refurbishment will be carried out in line with our Strategic Asset Investment Framework, SAFE, and as such, the project will emphasise extending the life of the station, introducing green technologies to help reduce energy costs and carbon footprint, and hopefully attracting a diverse workforce, and better enable our staff to manage the potential risk posed by occupational exposure to contaminants from emergency incidents. In order to facilitate the refurbishment of Slough Fire Station, an appliance and 24 members of staff have temporarily relocated to Langley Fire Station for the duration of the construction period. We don't anticipate any degradation of service. Thank you. One appliance in the service's new water rescue unit will continue to operate from Slough Fire Station to ensure there's no disruption. Whole-time graduation on Friday, this Friday coming. Our whole-time firefighter apprentices will have completed their initial training. which will be celebrated with a graduation ceremony at Newbury Fire Station. I think all members are welcome from 2 till 4. And certainly I think Billy might be able to join me, and everybody's welcome. Thank you. Since joining us in the summer, they've spent time at the Fire Training College at Morton in Marsh, Lee Valley Whitewater Centre, and at the Services Training Centre at Whitley Wood Fire Station. As of next week, each of the apprentices will join their watches at fire stations across the county. As part of the course, the apprentices organised a charity event to raise money for the Firefighters Charity. And to coincide with the charity's 80th anniversary this year, the apprentices embraced the 80 theme and decided to each cycle 80 kilometres on Saturday the 28th of October at the Lexicon in Bracknell. And currently they have raised over £5,500 and they are still accepting donations, members. Just giving you a heads up there. On behalf of the authority, I'd like to very much congratulate the apprentices on both their progress in training and their fundraising efforts, and I look forward to meeting them on Friday in Newbury, and I look forward to seeing anybody who can come along. Any questions on my announcements? Anything to add to that?
Nothing from the chair, thank you.
Thank you. So getting into the meeting proper, well, we've got issues arising from audits and governance. You can see that in item number 6, and no reports to be referred at this stage.
Aside from the scheme of allowances, Chair.
Okay, which we take later in the agenda. Any questions from members under Standing Order 30? Item 7, Faith, none. No. And no notices of motion, I do not believe. Item 8, and no recommendation to committees were made. Item 9 at this stage, so I can pass through those. Thank you. And then we do have a presentation on serious violence duty, and that's Jim.
I'm going to introduce Group Manager Matt Holt, who's going to do the presentation.
Very good, thank you.
So while Matt's getting ready, just not to steal Matt's thunder, with the introduction of the police, make sure I get it right, Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022, which came into force earlier this year, introduced a new duty which members may be familiar with through the local authorities, the serious violence duty, which we are recognised as one of the authorities within that duty. It's about basically sharing information and some of the things that Matt's going to talk about to basically drive down serious violence within our communities. So I'll hand over to Matt, who's going to provide the presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Chair, councillors, we've got a short presentation outlining the new serious violence duty. We'll be looking at what it's all about, why it's been introduced, what it means for the fire and rescue service, and how as a service we plan to meet the requirements of the duty. So, and there will be an opportunity to take questions at the end. So what is a serious violence duty? Serious violence is considered a public health issue. It can ruin lives, destroy families and tear apart communities. In response, the government has introduced the serious violence duty through the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act of 2022. This places the duty on specified authorities to plan, collaborate, to prevent and tackle serious violence in their local area. It requires them to work together, using existing partnerships where possible, to share information and tackle effective, coordinated action with their local communities. The government also announced that it would amend the Crime and Disorders Act of 1998 to ensure that serious violence is an explicit priority for community safety partnerships, by making sure they have a strategy in place to tackle violent crime. The serious violence duty came into effect on the 31st of January of 2023. Serious violence has not been specifically defined within the relevant legislation or statutory guidance. This is to allow responsiveness to new and emerging trends and to enable different areas of focus on issues of local prevalence. So why has it been introduced? Serious violence is a national priority. There has been significant rise in serious violence, with increases in homicide, knife and gun crime in virtually all police force areas since 2014. The violence is often gang related, and the association with drugs markets is evident. Too frequently, children are victims of gun crime, knife crime and exploitation. In many cases, by organised criminal groups running county lines. The duty is one part of the current government's programme of work to prevent and reduce serious violence. Other parts include providing funding for local violence reduction networks. Serious violence has far-reaching, devastating impacts on victims and communities. It's important that all parts of the system collaborate and use data, insights and evidence to design and implement local response, which tackle both the causes and consequences of serious violence. The duty places a requirement on specified authorities to do this. Police, probation services, youth offending teams, fire and rescue authorities, health and local authorities are all specified authorities and are responsible for delivering the duty. The legislation also identifies several relevant authorities: education, prison and youth custody authorities, with which the specified authorities must consult with when developing their local strategy. Police and crime commissioners are not subject to the duty, but have the authority to take a convening role, support specified authorities, distribute funding and monitor progress. So what does it involve? Local areas are encouraged to take a public health approach. This means using data and insights to understand serious violence and its causes locally, with a commitment to identifying the populations most impacted and reducing these inequalities. It also requires high levels of collaboration with communities and other partners, and a focus on generating short and longer term solutions which draw on the evidence of effectiveness. Importantly, this approach focuses on tackling the causes of violence and as such focuses on prevention and early intervention activity, as well as deploying criminal justice responses where necessary. What are the requirements? Local areas are expected to confirm the partnership arrangements through which they intend to deliver the duty. They are expected to agree a local definition of serious violence. Specified authorities are responsible for producing 2 mandatory products by the 31st of January 2024. A strategic needs assessment, drawing on multi-agency data and insights to identify the extent, nature and causes of serious violence locally. This should then inform a local strategy which is publicly shared and outlines planned activity to prevent and reduce serious violence. The strategy has to be implemented and reviewed on an annual basis. So what's happening locally? Local partners and communities are part of the Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit, which has taken a public health approach to tackling serious violence since 2019. Currently, under the Violence Reduction Unit operating model, a tiered structure provides scrutiny, insight, strategic leadership and coordination for discharging the duty. Partners have agreed the geography for the duty requirements. The Thames Valley will be set out as 9 local areas matching upper tier local authority boundaries. Agreement has also been reached in the provision of local working definition of the serious violence for the Thames Valley. Each of the 9 areas are developing local strategic needs assessments and plans using mechanisms and data that areas have decided upon locally. Community safety partnerships will complement this by ensuring that there are also locality-based responses in place. Funding has been provided through the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner to support partners to deliver the mandatory products and wider requirements of the duty. So what are we doing? In response to the duty coming into effect earlier this year, Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service has been actively preparing in readiness to meet the requirements of the duty. RBFRS have a single point of contact for the National Fire and Rescue Service, response to the duty. Through the current governance arrangements, the Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit's operating model, we provide coordination and strategic representation through our service function leads and senior leadership team. Local delivery representation for community safety partnerships is provided through our service delivery hubs and existing partnership working resulting from our core prevention activities. To complement these external governance arrangements, the Serious Violence Duty Working Group provides a forum for RBFRS Community Safety Partnership and Service Function leads to ensure our response to the serious violence duty reflects Home Office statutory guidance. As a recognised partner for the Thames Valley Together data project, we're continuing to explore opportunities to optimise data sharing to ensure local responses to serious violence are evidence-based. We continue to offer our well-established community safety programmes for children and young people, such as Fire Cadets and FireSafe, helping to keep young people safe and away from violence. And our successful safeguarding referral programme ensures that our staff and volunteers are able to report concerns of serious violence, coordinate the local partnership response and protect the most vulnerable. Finally, Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service is committed to stopping serious violence before it begins. By approaching the issue as a public health problem, we will aim to achieve sustainable reductions in serious violence and improve the health and quality of life for the communities that we serve. This means properly understanding the issue and local needs, addressing the risk factors that increase the likelihood of somebody becoming an offender or a victim of serious violence. As such, we will continue to develop partnerships to support risk reduction and deliver alongside other partners trauma-informed interventions. Only with this joint effort can we prevent the loss of life and physical and psychological damage that serious violence can cause. The serious violence duty is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make a positive impact, to change the fortune of some of the most excluded in our communities and improve their outcomes. With this in mind, we're determined to play our part in order to end the misery serious violence can cause individuals, families and communities. That concludes the presentation. Chair, happy to take any questions.
Members. Councillor Mike Smith.
Thank you very much, very interesting. I'm really at a loss as to why government don't think it's relevant for them to define what serious violence is. With over 300 local authorities, there can potentially be 300 definitions. What is the Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit's definition?
It's a really good question, and the reason for that is, as I tried to outline within the presentation, is to allow for responsiveness to local needs. So there might be, for instance, serious violence associated with nighttime economies. There might be some communities that suffer from a great deal of knife crime or gun crime. So it's important to give those local areas the freedom and flexibility to define that themselves. Back to your question in terms of what's the Thames Valley's definition of serious violence. Well, the benchmark definition or the starting point for serious violence is serious violence includes specific types of recorded crime, such as homicide, violence with injury against the person, incidents that include weapons, and areas of criminality where serious violence or its threat is inherent, such as in county lines drug dealing. So that's the benchmark in terms of where the Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit and the Police and Crime Commission want us to be. But like I say, that can be developed within those local areas based on needs. Hope that answers your question, Councillor.
Sorry, is that baseline definition in the Act then?
No. So intentionally within the statutory guidance, it wasn't prescriptive around the definition of serious violence for the reasons that I've outlined.
Okay, thank you.
But it's broadly in line with what we've reached across the Thames Valley.
While I'm waiting for other members, in practical terms then, this is information sharing that. This is our being in the community, spotting incidents joining them up with other authorities. There isn't any imperative on us to get directly involved in managing serious violence. And while you answer that also, could you give us, within reason and confidentiality, any violence visited upon us and our staff, which we know sometimes happens within an incident? But my general point is, we're joining up the information here, are we not?
Absolutely, Chair. You've sort of really grasped the concept of this. It is all about that collaborative partnership approach to preventing and reducing serious violence. And as sort of touched on within the presentation, that involves data sharing. And then there may be opportunities through the Thames Valley Together data project that we can provide data that can inform those response plans. You could say, deliberate fires out in the open. That could be a precursor to further developing crime tendencies. Equally, any sort of back to the other point around assaults on emergency frontline staff. So those are the sort of data sets where we can probably offer some benefit and inform future response plans. Absolutely, but this is all about working together, crystallising those existing partnership arrangements, and looking to work collaboratively to reduce serious violence.
I'll take Councillor Shepherd.
Shall we debate first and bring in last?
I'm just wondering, how does this relate to violence against women and girls, which is a lot of the local councils are taking into their own information? How are you coordinating that?
You'll have to bear with me on this response, because you might not believe this, but I'm not an expert in the serious violence duty. But I believe those come under separate legislation, under a separate act about the violence of women and girls. So this is almost a different space where there's existing funding arrangements and programmes of work to tackle the violence against women and girls.
Some of it is serious violence, unfortunately.
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally take your point and agree. Yeah. But if you don't mind, I'll come back to you.
Matt, I'm going to stop you because Jim is wishing to come in, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Councillor. I think it's something that this is a strand of a strategy. It's a part of that, as are other things. So in terms of the work we're doing, and the work that Matt's responsible for is particularly focusing on this duty, but as a service we'll be looking at how we contribute to that wider kind of strategy around violence against women and girls. So we're working closely with Thames Valley Police colleagues at the moment and kind of how we do that and develop our own response more broadly across a number of areas.
So before I bring the Chief in then, we have an eyes and ears type ability and role here. How will the Fire Authority members see what we're achieving? How are we going to be involved in this activity, please, Matt?
So are we specifically talking about assurance that we are meeting the requirements of the duty? That's something that's being developed at the moment, but I think what we can say is that through our existing programme of work, in terms of safeguarding and our safety education services, that we are continuing to place ourselves on a strong footing going forward, because the duty is so new. What we hope to do in the future is be able to report back into Fire Authority about some of the great programmes of work that we're doing and campaigns and projects where we may be able to contribute further. But it's very early days.
Quick note from Jim, then I'm going to the Chief.
Yeah, I think the key point there is there's still a number of areas in development, that being one of them, but certainly something that through Wayne we'll discuss with you and members in terms of how that might look.
And so, with you then, Chief.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Matt. An interesting presentation, because it's complex and it's a big area of work. I think just to add to a couple of points that Matt made in response to members' questions, some I suppose task-related practical examples of what's going on the ground. For several years we will have been involved in what we call target hardening, so we'll get a safe and well referral, or we'll get a risk of arson referral, and we'll fit arson-proof letterboxes, and we'll share data and information with the police, and that's gone on for several years. We, through the operational officer network, we share operational intelligence, so all our frontline staff are safeguarding trained. If they have a cause of concern, we signpost, and we have a very, very strong track record in safeguarding referrals. That can include operational intelligence that is of value to the police around violence in the home, domestic violence, which preceded the serious violence duty. I think what we're seeing now is a coordinated effort to bring that work together across a multitude of agencies. So whether it's social workers, ambulance service, fire and rescue services, police officers, whatever, there are a number of agencies, and it's back to that kind of, collect the information once and use it several times, but share the information across organisations so we can try and prevent this occurrence of events where multiple agencies have had opportunity to intervene in the situation and they haven't, and unfortunately it's ended in trauma or fatality for people, and it could have been stopped. So a real concerted effort to coordinate and bring that together. The Thames Valley Together data partnership is an incredibly powerful, incredibly rich source of data and information. We will provide data into that from our Safe and Well referral scheme, from the arson prevention scheme, but I think effectively we'll be a net beneficiary because the richness of the data that sits in there will help us target where we should be carrying out Safe and Well referrals, where we can do. I know there are some parts of the country where we can assist police by doing a thing that's called red routes, where fire appliances will drive around certain areas at certain times of night to give an authoritative presence, because it can be a deterrent to certain things. So there are things like that we can be asked to do, but predominantly will be around target hardening, making potential victims of violence safe from arson, where arson is used as a weapon or a threat. And to summarise the last bit I would say, Chair, is how we bring that back to members. As Jim said, it's in its infancy. There is a violence reduction unit strategy board. So the governance is represented across all of those 9 authorities. In fact, I believe the Chief Fire Officer of Oxfordshire is the first chair of the Violence Reduction Unit Strategy Board, because the police intentionally don't want to chair that board. That obviously is attended by the Police and Crime Commissioner, who has overall responsibility for the discharge of the serious violence duty in the Home Office's perspective in a geographic area for which he's responsible. But as Matt said, a lot of the work in the 9 local areas is delivered through the community safety partnerships. That's the members' opportunity, the predominant members' opportunity to engage with the kind of officer-member interface of what's happening on the ground in a locality in relation to the delivery of the serious violence duty. We haven't quite developed yet how we bring that through our governance into Audit and Governance Committee through the Strategic Performance Report, because at the minute all of the metrics in there, for example, number of Safe and Wells, number of referrals, number of safeguarding referrals, are reported independently, not collectively as a serious violence duty indicator.
Okay, we're on the start of a journey here. That's very helpful, Matt, and we look forward to getting more information in the future months.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so item 11 is the members' charter, and those who came along to the workshop, you really got your teeth into it there. We brought, Nikki kindly put one together. It came about through my saying, what can we commit to as members to the authority itself? So we brought what was a really good start, but they took about 35 minutes on it when they were given 15, so it really did engage members. If you look at page 23, this is the one we come to tonight to sign off. The leaders of the individual groups have seen this, and I look forward to Nikki introducing this and seeing where we get to. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and really I guess not too much to say based on the introduction as well. So we, as the Chair said, brought through a first draft for a number of members who are here tonight to kind of discuss in more detail, and there was excellent engagement from across all parties in terms of the discussion. What you have in front of you on page 23 of the pack is the kind of best compromise, let's put it that way, in terms of bringing things forward together. So hopefully you will recognise some of the feedback that you had on the night and how you fed into those discussions, and you will note some of those changes. And as the Chair says, the leaders of each group have seen a version of this before it was shared with you tonight. So my intent, it is also being shared on the screen, I believe, but actually it's probably easier to look at it in your pack if you have it. So I hope that it's pretty self-explanatory given what it was, how long we discussed it on the night. This does also obviously sit aligned to your own members' code of conduct. So this is in addition to and not rather than. But it's great from the services point of view that there's such a explicit declaration of support, I suppose, from members in terms of that vision and the delivery of it. And you'll note that it's to be signed by both the Chief and the Chair, so as to kind of really that one team reinforcement once again around us delivering for the communities of Berkshire. So happy to take questions or comments, Chair, through you.
Thank you. Members? Hello, thank you, Wendy. Councillor Green.
Hello, yeah, just one tiny thing. I think this is really fantastic, but I've noticed in the pack and on the screen the word vision has an I missing. But that's
Is it sort of an irony to vision having an eye?
Anyone has spotted it, so it's impressive.
Thank you. That was pretty vital. Thank you for doing that. Can we also understand, Nikki, where this will be displayed? I have a vision of it being, quite prominent on stations, on our estate. Don't be surprised, members, if the staff members say to us, "Are you fulfilling bullet point 5 on your charter?" I've had this happen before, and code of conduct as well, so we're not unused to that. But Nikki, how do you think we're going to roll this out?
Well, based on members' wishes tonight, if they're happy to support this, and I think we can definitely share it across our estate, we will obviously make sure it's available on Siren, and so that people have got access to it, and we will share it as part of our cascade, which is our monthly cascade. And I'll be guided by you in terms of if you want it displayed, then I'm sure there's certainly notice boards around the organisation, and that would seem an appropriate place to put them.
I think a laminated version.
Might get a frame,
Or even a frame. Oh, now you get me excited here. I remember excitement. Yeah, very good. Any comments, members? Councillor Drummond.
Yeah, just like to say, I found you very informative and enjoyable. It was really well good to be at it. Thank you.
And come up with a good solution here in terms of the charter. Councillor Baby, it looks like members are generally satisfied. We'll know in a minute when we vote. But unless anybody else wants to speak, I am going to put this to the vote. The members approve the members' charter Appendix A. All those in favour, please. I think that's everybody. Yeah.
Well done. Thank you so much for that. I feel quite proud of that. Okay, so now we go on to the independent review of scheme of allowances introduced by Paul Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. This evening we bring to you the independent review of members' allowance and the draft scheme of allowance for approval for 24-25. The review follows the principles of the statutory independent remuneration panel that requires a review every 4 years. Our last review was in 2019. The review is carried out by an independent people, which is the South East Employers. The report sets out the findings and the recommendations. Just a bit of background on the review. The review was carried out in September this year and comprised of interviews with 5 members in various roles, as well as myself, the Chief Fire Officer. It also carried out a questionnaire sent to all members, of which 7 members responded, and used this evidence to come to their recommendations within the report. The general recommendations or the general findings were that the allowance were fine and that there was little desire from the questioning and the questionnaire to change the local basic allowance and the special responsibility allowance. However, what they did find was that there was an increase in members' commitment of time to the Fire Authority from 18 days to 19 days since the last review, and that the remuneration for the calculation to be taken on the average weekly median of the full-time employees across Berkshire councils, which is where they come to the daily mean rate of £140. This means that the recommended annual allowance, basic allowance, will increase to £2,736 from April 2024. The report recommended also that the special responsibility allowance remains the same and that the number of special responsibility allowances capped at 10 with the rule of 1 special responsibility allowance remaining in place. The report recommended that the travel and subsistence allowance remains unaltered and that the remuneration for the independent person will remain the same as at £150 and 32p. It also recommended that the current indexation of allowances remains and that the basic allowance, special responsibility allowance and the independent persons be indexed to the annual local government percentage salary increase and that this remains for the same for the next 4 years. Happy to take any questions on that through you, Chair.
Members, this could be a short item or could take the rest of the evening. I think it's pertinent just to draw your attention to 5.1 financial implications, where the net effect is £1,237 per annum, so a little over £100 a month. It's worth getting that perspective on this, but I'll take the Vice Chair, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. I mean, I was going to refer to that actually in my comments. I mean, it's a very, very small extra amount. When I make the sort of wider point that we must be the only, as elected members, both in Parliament and also as councillors, must be about the only groups of people that get to vote on your own pay or allowances. It's a tricky situation, this, isn't it? And it's, you know, there's always political mileage made of it, actually. So I'm glad to say that in a sense we've taken a lot of that out of the steam out of that, particularly obviously with the increase in 5.1. And if you see us, there's a comparative data table as well on page 48, which shows us sort of kind of with comparable authorities in the sort of kind of mid-range. I mean, when I came on this authority, actually, in terms of the overall pay right across the country, I think we were really right towards the bottom. But some adjustments were made, and they were done independently. It wasn't us saying we should get more. These are fully independent, and we've all been interviewed on several occasions to arrive at that. But in a way, it's a kind of unsatisfactory situation that's going to continue. It's not going to change. We face the same in our local authorities. I wish there was some other way of doing it, but at the moment, this is it. And I think this is a pretty good stab at it, and I support the overall thrust of this and the percentages and everything. I think they're fair.
It's important to remember what we're voting on here. We're voting to accept the conclusions of an independent review. Okay? Nothing to do with what we want. We're accepting the independent review. If we were trying to do something else, that would take us into us marking our own homework and considering our own remuneration. We're not. We're accepting an independent review. South East employers, very well known, very well respected. Let's keep that in mind, please, as well as the fact that it is the most marginal change. Do I have any other speakers? Then I think I'm going to put the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 to the vote. I'll take them on block unless anybody wishes me not to. And I will ask you to support now, show your support or not, for 2.1 and 2.2 on page 26. Please, Sharon. Yeah, thank you very much. I proposed, you've seconded. Now, keep your hands up. Thank you very much. And that's unanimous, which is always a nice position to get to. Thank you. I beg your pardon, I think there may have been one abstention. Yeah, okay. So, I'm going to number 13 then, and hopefully this won't take as long. Who's introducing this one?
Joe, I'm going to pick that up.
Thank you, please
tonight.
do.
It definitely won't take long because I'm not the expert in pensions. So this is brought to you tonight to confirm the appointment of Jim Powell as the employee representative to the Pension Board. Mark has been doing that role for a number of years and has decided to step down. And Jim has very graciously stepped into that position, and so this is really an administrative task to ask members to approve the appointment as Jim Powell as the one of the employee representatives for the Pension Board.
Agreed.
I think that's agreed. I don't know if I need to vote on that. I think
Technically, it does need a vote.
okay, let's do a vote. I propose Vice Chair second. All those in favour?
Sorry, Jim.
You can't get out of it now, Jim.
Oh, well. Seemed like a good idea. You take your pensions.
Jim's got to get a
A drink from Mark Arkwell. Okay, thank you. Number 14 then, the annual Treasury Management Review and mid-year Treasury Management Update, page 75 to 96. Introduced, I think, by Budget Lead, Councillor Mike Smith, and then Conor Byrne. Thank you. Over to you then, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. We've got two reports to note: the annual Treasury Management Review for 2022-23, i.e. the end of last year, and the mid-year Treasury Update for this year, which I will point out has been delivered a month earlier than last. So the first point to note really, which isn't in the report, is that we have actually managed to sign off the 2020-21 audit, which also looks at these issues. Hopefully 21-23, 22 and 22-23 should follow, but somebody said something that might take a few more years. The annual report fully complies with all the statutory codes, the statutory requirements and the CIFRA codes as does the mid-year report. Looking at last year, the actual expenditure was rather a long way behind plan. Two key reasons were delays in the fleet investment due to long lead times for the orders, and also delays in a number of IT projects, some down to somewhat prolonged discussions and negotiations with BT, but I'm given to understand that's now moving ahead. We've managed to reduce the gross borrowing requirement slightly with no new borrowing than last year, and have managed to repay £2 million off what we owe, which is good. And due to the higher than expected sale value for D-Road, we have rather a lot on deposit, but this will be agreed on, will be spent on projects that we've already agreed, or those to be brought forward in the future. The increase in the interest rates in the last 12 months has significantly increased the interest earned on our investments, which is good news. But inflation is still running at 6.7% for the last 12 months to September, so there's still a difference, a carry over, which is the difference between what we spend on borrowing and what we manage to earn on interest. So that's the annual report for last year. Looking ahead at this year's report to mid-September, again, the actual spend to end of September is somewhat low. If you just did a simple assumption of 50% of budget for half a year. The reason that mainly because we expect to pay for a lot of things towards the end of the year, like the training rebuild, the training centre rebuild, like the canal refurbishment, stage payments on the appliances that we agreed to order at the last meeting, and also other fleet deliveries of things that were ordered last year actually getting delivered now. And as of this point in time, we have about £13 million on investment, slightly over that. That's again slightly to do with receipts from central government and unitary authorities, and not necessarily linear through the year. So we've got plenty of money in the bank at the moment, which is earning us money. And we do not expect to borrow any more money going forward this year. So Conor can give us a much better understanding of the than I do.
Many thanks. And over to you, Conor, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Smith has certainly covered most of the points really in the reports. I suppose I just want to highlight for members that as an authority we haven't adopted any complex investment strategies and we give priority to security and liquidity. And the aim is to achieve a yield commensurate with these principles. So obviously we are looking to get best yield we can, but security and liquidity take primacy. In addition, just to point out that this year the authority agreed to add an ethical dimension to its investment strategy. So that was for 23-24, and that's based on how free countries are as defined by Freedom House. So that was something that members agreed at the end of February. Just a bit more detail then in terms of the investment income. So the amount received in 22-23 is £320,000. The anticipated amount for 23-24 is £625,000. That's £151,000 more than budgeted. And as Councillor Smith said, we did repay loan in 22-23. We're not looking to borrow any money in the current financial year. So happy to take questions, Chair.
Generally a good news item, members. Clearly it's good to have these resources available because there are always headwinds against the service. But to see borrowing go down by £2 million in the period is good to see, but we've got quite a lot to invest in the future. So members, very satisfactory. Councillor Warner.
Yeah, I'd just like to commend the work that you're doing, Connor and Mike. I think it's an incredible position to be in. You know, I'm struggling with finances at Windsor Maidenhead at the moment, and what I would give to be in the position that the Fire Authority is. I mean, I'm not saying we should start spending money recklessly at all, but you know, steady as she goes. I think it's really impressive set budget. Thanks.
It's gratifying, but we've got the budget to go into, and you know how tough that'll be for all local authorities and authorities like ours. But it's a position we'd rather be in than not. I think we're noting this, but you probably want us to vote on noting it, do we? Yeah.
Strictly, Chairman.
I propose that it be noted. Councillor Werner seconds that. All those in favour of it being noted? Thank you. And then we go to the forward. You're not going to have me vote on the forward plan, are you?
We're going to keep it shorter than the Chelsea Spurs first time.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring Chelsea and Spurs up actually, but since you mentioned it, thank you for that. Scratching at that wound. I was at the match where Liverpool went down to 9 men. Of course, these things have to come round, and we have to go down to 9 men. It's the referees getting their own back, I think.
It was glorious 4-1 defeat in football history.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Okay, so forward plan be noted. Members agreed? Thank you very much. Minutes of the standing committees. They're actually, we note them. They're on the website. So I think again, I'm not going to vote on that. It's so noted, members. And as I said to you earlier, when we get here on the 15th of February, you don't need to bring your night clothes, but it will be a longer meeting because we'll be in the setting the budget for next year at that stage. Budget working party starts meeting on later in this month, and we've got quite a lot to go through on there. We are supporting the 5 of the fire again this year throughout through all brigades, all services, and we'll see how that shakes out. But for now, members, I declare with my wonderful gavel here, date of next meeting. Oh, golly, stop me in flight there, Councillor.
Yeah. On this side of the table, Chairman, can I congratulate you on a very smooth running meeting this evening, and for all the officers of work that they do put in to our reports here. So we thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for that. But I'm okay now? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you.